Ghostpaw. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ghostpaw, and I have a story to tell you. This story is called Noises, written by Adam Valdivia. I woke up in the dead of night to the sound of jingling and thumping coming from the other room. I lay still in my bed and listened to what sounds like my little brother and a dog running up and down the hallway, his steps thudding back and forth on the hardwood floor, accompanied with the sound of clicking. He runs up to my door and touches the doorknob and runs back giggling. I remember doing the same thing to my older cousins when we would spend the night over at their place. It was a kind of game, and the rules were simple enough, and all you had to do was turn off the lights, run up to the doorknob, and touch it. The person who got the most amount of touches without getting screamed at would win. Yeah, I was kind of a little jerk when I was a kid, but nonetheless, I had shown my little brother how to play. Now that I think about it, I really wish I hadn't. He's been doing this for hours, and I'll admit it's starting to drive me a little insane. But I just don't have the heart to tell him to stop. My brother unfortunately had some mental health issues, and he was born premature and had almost died during birth. He was born with the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck, and the doctors feared the worst as he was already turning purplish blue color when he came out. But through the magic of science and amazing work from the medical staff, my brother pulled through. I wasn't there when this happened. This is just what my father had told me. He always said it was a miracle of God that my brother came to us. My family never admitted, but I knew they loved my little brother more than they loved me. He always got what he wanted. He never had to do chores, and I was always the one taking out the garbage or setting the table. I did all the work, but I didn't mind at first, and I loved my little brother. He always had this goofy smile on his face, and anytime he would get scared, he would come to me. He made me feel important, like a knight in armor, always ready to protect him from the dangerous creatures underneath his bed or hiding in his closet. And I really did love my brother. Our family had a system where I and my brother would pick out a movie every weekend for family movie night. We would alternate turns picking movies, and for a while it worked out great. Except for one night, I picked out a scary movie. It was a movie about evil puppets, and I guess my mom and dad were too busy to notice that I had gotten it. Now, normally our family would sit down and watch the movie together, except this night we didn't. My mom and dad had gotten us a babysitter for the night because it was their anniversary, so they would be out late. I didn't really care. I had my movie, and that's all that mattered to me. The babysitter, if you really want to call her that, was an older teenage girl. She was nice and all, but she never really looked after us. She sat us in front of the TV for a few hours while she talked on the phone in the room until it was time for bed. That was the norm. I grabbed my brother's hand and we made our way to the couch. I helped him up onto it and ran over to the TV, turned it on and popped in the video. I eagerly ran back to the couch as it was my first scary movie and I somehow knew I'd love it. The movie started off creepy and gory, with people who were having sex, brutally murdered by a puppet in a black trench coat and fedora. I remember it so clearly. We watched the movie completely and I was on edge the whole time. Any sudden sound had me paranoid, thinking I was about to be disemboweled by a group of evil dolls. Once the movie was over, I turned over to my brother, whom I hadn't heard a peep from all night. I looked over at him and my heart stopped. It was the second most terrifying image I had ever seen in my entire life. My brother's eyes were wide open and they were completely white. His mouth was wide and a puddle of drool collected under his chin. He had a look of complete and utter terror on his face. I screamed and the babysitter rushed in. She screamed too. The paramedics arrived a few minutes later, and they rushed my little brother to the emergency room. My parents met us there, and the doctors had told them that my brother had suffered some type of seizure brought on by stress. My parents were furious, and they demanded to know what had happened. They scolded our babysitter, and all she could say was that she had us watch TV. My mom was not at all happy with the answer she had gotten, and she looked like she wanted to kill her. My dad turned his attention on me and asked me what had happened. I told him I sat with my little brother up on the couch and we watched a movie. That's it. My dad kept asking me questions, but I couldn't answer. I couldn't look him in the eye. But I hadn't really seen or heard my brother have the seizure. Finally, he asked me what movie we had watched, but I was hesitant when I told him. I told him the name, and he gave me a puzzled look. The title really didn't sound sinister, and he asked me what kind of movie it was, and what it was about. I told him. I nearly flew from my seat from the smack he had given me. From that night on, I wasn't allowed to pick movies anymore. Turns out, my brother had some more medical issues that I didn't know about, and apparently, along with being a bit slow-minded, he also had a weak heart. And the movie had terrified him to the point that he almost died of fright. From that night on, things were different. My brother began to have night terrors, and sometimes he would rush into my room screaming for me to protect him from the puppets that wanted to eat him. Sometimes they were so bad that we needed to rush him to the hospital. My life was pretty miserable after that, and I knew my mom and my dad hated me for what I had done to their little gift from heaven. And the only one who seemed to love me was my little brother. Things went on like this for about a year, until one night something awful happened. Now, for the past few months, I never really paid close attention to what my brother says, until one night I decided to sleep in his room with him to show him that it was alright. I laid on his bed, staring up at the ceiling, trying to fall asleep. My brother still slept with his nightlight on, and it kept me up. I remember thinking that first night in the hospital, and the image of my brother's face popped back up in my head. I had this eerie feeling that if I looked over at him, I would see it again. I tried my best not to turn around, but the thought of it gnawed away in the back of my mind. And slowly, I turned my head, and to my relief, he had his normal goofy smile. I sighed, and I turned my head back to watch the ceiling. And I don't remember when it happened, but I managed to fall asleep. The only reason I knew I was dreaming was that I was immediately woken up by my brother flailing around in his bed. He looked like he was having a night terror again. I remembered my mom said that if he ever had one, that all I needed to do was rub his head or his back until he stopped. I did, and after a minute or two he calmed down and began to snore again. I sighed and I looked back up at the ceiling. But something was different. When did the lights go out, I wondered. It was at this moment that I wish I hadn't been in that room. My gaze was met from what looked like a tiny little person dressed in a clown suit staring back at me. Its eye sockets were completely empty, its head turned around like an owl's. It clung to the ceiling like some kind of spider. Its face was an awful shade of milky white, except for the painted diamond-shaped points under its eyeless sockets. My heart was pounding in my chest. My lungs burned, yearning for oxygen, but I knew if I moved or even breathed, this thing would tear into me like a kid getting a present. I couldn't tell if it had noticed me, that I was still awake, but the moment I took in a small breath of air, I knew I had made a mistake. It opened its maw, exposing rows of what appeared to be razor blades. It let out a disgusting hiss, and it let go the ceiling. What I did next, I'm not proud of, but I ran, and I ran as fast as I could for my brother's room. I heard it chased after me, its jingling feet clicking the wooden floorboards, wanting to devour me. I ran out the room and slammed the door shut. I made it out. I heard the creature running away from the door and climbing its way back up to its original spot. I kept my ear near the door, and there was complete silence. For a few moments I wondered if the coast was clear. I turned the door handle slightly, but immediately I heard the sound of the bells and its clicking feet shoot towards me. The door thudded and I tried to escape, but there was no way I was going to let it get me. I had the door firmly shut, and the sound of hissing and screaming was coming from the other side of the door, but I was too strong for the little creature. After what seemed like forever, it had given up, trying to pry the door open. All the noise had stopped. My parents ran down the hall and saw me, and they demanded to know what it was that I was doing. I tried to explain to them what was going on, but they wouldn't believe me. My dad moved me aside and attempted to open the door, but it had been locked. I protested against him attempting to open the door for fear of what horrid thing laid before me. My dad told my brother to open the door. My brother, I had forgotten all about him. Was he okay? I wondered. Again, my dad attempted to open the door. We could finally hear my brother's sobs coming from the other room, and I was relieved. The creature didn't get him. Dad told him to unlock the door so we could finally help him. Finally, my brother got up from where he was, and he walked over to the door, still sobbing. What happened next is still a mystery to everyone in our family. They swear up and down that I made it all up. I know that they know the sick truth. As my brother walked up to the door, we heard the sounds of jingling and a loud meow hiss from the other side of the door. My brother let out a scream, and that abruptly ended with the sound of glass breaking. My dad rushed to the door, and after a few good hits, he broke it down. My brother's room was deserted, and his window shattered. The only thing left were a few drops of blood and small tiny footprints left on this floor. And that was the last time I had seen my brother. He was never found. My parents blamed me for what had happened to him. They said that he had ran away because I was scaring him too much. But I know the truth. He was taken from us by some kind of evil doll. So as I lay here going over this in my head, like I have for the past several years of my life, I often wonder what happened to my little brother. It wasn't until recently that he started visiting me late at night. Even now, I can still hear him running up to my door, touching the knob and running back. It really was a fun game we played together. It is rather annoying, but like I said, I just don't have the heart to tell him to stop. The only thing that really honestly bothers me is that I can hear what sounds like the jingling of a dog's collar and the clicking of nails on the floorboards running with him. And the sad, awful truth is, he never owned a dog. Hi everyone, Ghostpaw here, and I just wanted to say thank you very much for listening into this video. If you did like it, please leave a like and share with your friends. You can also leave a comment of any suggestions. This was my very first video, and I know the editing quality is probably pretty bad, but I hope to get better in time. I also have a lot of other stories that I'll be working on soon, and I'm going to try to get at least one video out a week for now. I also wanted to say a big thank you to Lazy Masquerade and Your Maker. They pointed me in the right direction and gave me some pretty helpful tips, so thank you both very much. I'd appreciate it if you guys went over to their pages and give them some love. I put their links in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching, and remember, Ghostpaw is always hunting.